Week 3, Exercising Spiritual Disciplines. Let's talk about habits. Habits have a way of taking over our lives. For better or worse, these simple actions have the power to steer us towards our goals and to accomplish the tasks that have been set out before us, or to distract us from the things that we should be doing. It can take a long time to establish the positive ones, but the negative habits can develop almost immediately. We can all identify the habits in our own lives, the ones that we're really proud of, and the ones that we would really like to be rid of. Spiritual disciplines operate much in the same way as our habits. When we are in a solid routine of spending time reading our Bible, doing personal devotions, attending church, even giving of our tithes, we can be proud of ourselves, finding peace and stability in the presence of these practices. Aside from the benefits that these specific actions bring into our lives, there is an added benefit of establishing routines that can provide for us a sense of predictability, especially when there are lots of chaotic things going on in the rest of our lives. When we aren't feeling ready for the day ahead, or if we've already had a tough day, we can look forward to time set aside for moments of productive regrouping. This also works in the opposite direction. When we strip ourselves of routines that would work in service to our emotional, spiritual, and even physical health, we strip ourselves of the opportunity to find our footing. It becomes very easy to get distracted by the things around us without any supports there to anchor us to things that are much more stable than we tend to be. In order to preserve our own faith and to equip ourselves with the tools needed to sustain our faith, we need to be mindful of our habits and make sure that we have established a sense of discipline in our own lives that will contribute to spiritual maintenance. The majority of Gen Z is lacking this discipline. There are all kinds of factors for why this is the case, contributing to the development of this trend, including the time spent on technological devices and social media. Now, before you rush ahead to eliminate every device held by your student, let's consider for a moment the role that these devices hold. For one thing, they offer a constant distraction from the boring, stressful, difficult, or overwhelming elements of life. They are stimulating, engaging, and fun to use. They are also a way of connecting with others through social media, of course, but also through games, messaging platforms, and other spaces designed to contribute to someone's growing community. They provide access to unlimited resources, some of which we're going to talk about in the coming weeks. And these can be a valuable safe space for students to wonder about things that might be more difficult to ask about in person. When you consider these purposes, it actually makes a lot of sense that Gen Z is so drawn to technology and social media and all that that entails to fulfill the needs that they have at those moments in their lives. Of course, they are opting to use a singular resource to address each of these complicated areas: their social life, the big questions that they're asking, and their ever-shortening attention span. In many ways, this lines up directly with the value of discipline in all of our lives. We look for interesting ways of learning more about faith, whether that's reading interesting books or creating worship services with complex setups and engagement. We seek out community through a Sunday morning service or a small group at someone's home. We work hard to build Christian circles that surround us with like-minded individuals. We also have our own resources that we use, including the Bible and other devotional materials that we access in order to answer the questions that even we get embarrassed about. I would love to believe that we have established each of these disciplines in our lives for the sole purpose of honoring God's instructions in His Word. But I believe we do these things because we find value in them. Aside from the initial value that each action brings, there is a greater purpose being accomplished in each of these moments. We've noticed a positive impact in our lives as a result of being disciplined followers of Jesus, and likely we still struggle with them from time to time. We as leaders need to help Gen Z see the value in these actions in their own lives and at their level. We need to stop rejecting the resources that our youth have found and decided to engage with just because they are different than the ones we tend to use. We need to change our perspective and instead reframe these tools as being helpful and valuable ways of engaging with our youth exactly where they're at. By operating in partnership with our students, we can help them to develop these habits and build sustainable faith for the long haul. These practical skills are the things that will keep them engaged with their faith and connected to their God, even when we are not in close contact with them anymore, even when they have continued on with their lives, even when they have stepped into the careers set before them, even when they are building their own families. These practical skills are so critical to sustainable faith. Here are 3 ways that you can use technology to help establish spiritual disciplines in the lives of your youth. Number 1, use the Bible app. The YouVersion Bible app is an incredible tool designed to encourage Bible reading, devotional time, and to do it all through community. You can easily set up reminders, notifications for daily Bible verses, and create a community of reading scripture together. This is a fantastic way of engaging your youth even through the week and modeling for them what a structured devotional life can look like. This app is available on all smart devices, so I would encourage you to check it out and see if it'll work for your group. There are multiple other Bibles that are available on our phones, but I would recommend this one as a great way of building your community at the same time as establishing these spiritual disciplines. Number 2, use texting, group chats, or other messaging platforms to stay in touch and send helpful reminders throughout the week. This is particularly helpful if you don't have the chance to see your students on a regular basis, or if you're in a longer distance relationship with them. Think of your students that have gone away to post-secondary education, or maybe some that go on a trip, or any other set of circumstances in which communicating aside from meeting in person is the primary option. Set up a system of sending verses of encouragement or regular prayer requests throughout the week. You can either have a daily theme or a weekly topic of conversation. It works best if you have a routine and a predictable schedule of how you will keep in contact. Of course, you can also use this just to have lighthearted conversation and to really establish those connections and relationships that are so necessary for encouraging our students. But I would recommend that there is a topic of conversation being discussed, that there are intended goals of this group chat or messaging platform so that you don't lose focus and get a little bit too sidetracked every day. The best part of implementing this into your group is that you will be constantly reminding your youth that their faith should be a part of every day, that this shouldn't be something that occurs just on a Sunday morning or a Friday evening or whenever else your youth gatherings tend to be, but that their faith and reminders of their faith should be occurring at every moment of every day. And that can still happen in community. Number 3. Check out the resource section of this program in order to find additional apps and suggestions for what materials you can use to integrate technology into your youth group. There are all kinds of meditation apps taken directly from scripture. There are prayer notebooks and other resources that will assist you in bridging the gap between Generation Z's lack of spiritual disciplines and our familiarity with them. Now, this is not to suggest that Gen Z is horribly incompetent about discipline across the board. This is not the case. But what we do need to take note of is the trend for our students to move on very quickly from things that initially grab their attention. While it might be novel for one moment to use a specific program or to focus specifically on their devotional life, that can often become a thing of the past very quickly with Generation Z. And so in order to get them past that, we need to assist them in building predictable routines and habits so that they do not lose sight of the importance of spiritual discipline in their own lives. Faith-building disciplines are more important than ever in developing a strong generation of Christ followers that will stand the test of time. We need to update the ways that we are teaching these skills and integrate them into our lives so that these become habits that stick. We should be teaching these disciplines, what they are, why they matter, and how we should use them. But let's make sure that we teach them in a way that is reflective of those that are being taught. That way, we can reinforce their value instead of undermining them from the get-go. By modeling these habits ourselves and partnering with Gen Z to develop them in their own lives, we will cultivate a culture of healthy spiritual discipline for years to come. Finally, make sure that as you continue to teach spiritual disciplines, you don't take for granted that most of your kids will have an idea of what these things are. The results of our survey showed that many members of Gen Z do not remember ever being taught about specific spiritual disciplines, despite having a vague idea of what they are. We need to make sure we are being intentional, that we are teaching these things in the first place. I would recommend having a series on what it looks like to read the Bible, common obstacles that you might face, things that might get in the way, things that might be confusing. What even is the Bible? What are they going to find inside once they begin to investigate on their own? These are important topics to cover for each different spiritual discipline that you believe is critical to their spiritual health. All of these things are outlined directly in Scripture, according to God's instructions of how we need to be pursuing Him and including Him in our daily lives. Teach your children this, and they will be sure to have sustainable faith for years to come.